coming, the Yanks are coming, the drums rum-tumming everywhere.
Welcome back to our show. Again, we're going to be interviewing a person who served in our military to defend us, and they're going to give you some insights on what it's like to be in the military, the good, the bad, and what it meant to us. So we're going to give you a little idea of what military life is like. Since the Medal of Honor was established, there was only been one woman recipient. Her name was Dr. Mary Edward Walker. She was a Union surgeon during the Civil War. She received her medical degree from Syracuse Medical College. She had a difficult time because people at that time did not accept her as a doctor. She attempted to go into the Army, but was denied a commission. So she served as an unpaid volunteer surgeon, and eventually, in September of 1863, she received a commission as an acting assistant surgeon. She worked at the front lines at the battlefields of Fredericksburg and Chattanooga. She crossed the Confederate lines to treat civilians, and while she was there, she was captured and considered a spy. She was sent to prison, where she treated not only Union soldiers, but Confederate sick. She received the Medal of Honor on November 11th, 1865, from President Andrew Johnson for meritorious service. My guest today, Sophie McCarty, is an Army veteran who served in the military police and deployed several times to many countries. She was born and raised in Houston, Texas, as a daughter of a Vietnam veteran. She enlisted out of high school and chose to go into military law enforcement. She deployed to numerous different countries with a final deployment to Afghanistan. She achieved the induction into the Sergeant Audie Murphy Club, and after an honorable discharge from the Army, she worked as a military contractor in Iraq. After 2 years, she chose a different career path. She decided to become a nurse. She attended and graduated from Kishwaukee Community College and graduated as top nursing student. She worked as a nurse in a nursing facility in Rockford, Illinois. Then she worked in a clinic in Sycamore, Illinois, which was acquired by Northwestern Medicine. She is working currently as a clinical operations coordinator. Sophie is married to an Army veteran and has 2 beautiful daughters. Welcome, and thank you for coming on the show.
Nice to meet you, Jim.
Thank you. What made you decide to join the Army?
I think at an early age, probably when I was about 15, I had a fascination with our recruiters that would show up to our high school in our cafeteria area. And I pestered them for many years, and they would always tell me, come back when you're a senior. At that time, I didn't have a lot of role models in my family, and I knew if I stayed back in Texas that, there was a likelihood that I would follow down the same path. So to me, it was something I wanted to do, serve my country, as well as, look for an opportunity to grow and get out of Texas. So.
What was your trip like going to basic training?
Going to basic training, the night before, I almost regretted it. I remember saying, is this the right thing I'm doing? They put me in a hotel near downtown Houston, near George Bush International Airport. I stayed the night, and then the next morning was our flight out to Fort Leonard Wood. That night came, I fell asleep. I woke up, I was still nervous. On the flight to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, I got airsick, and I was just crying. I was very nervous. I didn't know what to expect my first time away from home.
Well, we're kids, and we're going somewhere that we don't know what's going to happen, so I can understand that. Been there myself.
Yes.
What was your basic training like at Fort Leonard Wood?
At Fort Leonard Wood, the time I went in June of 2000, very hot, and as a military police officer, our company was very large. There were a lot of recruits. We did about 10 weeks of basic training and another 10 weeks AIT for advanced individual training. When I went there, it was just a total culture shock. I had never seen so many different ethnicities, variety. It was a melting pot, so to say, different personalities, people from all walks of life, and just very high strung.
Yeah. Anything from basic or AIT that really stands out?
From basic or I believe the biggest thing I recall is just enjoying being there, hitting the ground running, even though the drill sergeants, they weren't allowed to curse at you, but they would yell at you. Sometimes a curse word would slip out or two. However, in my head, this is a walk in the park. My parents yell at me too, and the drill sergeants, they can't touch you or hit you or anything like that. So to me, it was just, do your best, 110%, and make a name for yourself kind of deal.
Now, you went into military police, and you must have went through intensive training. What
Yes.
was some of the things they taught you?
Yes, sir. So for the military police, AIT, a lot of the things we did was learning how to interview suspects, doing vehicle searches, personnel searches, criminal investigations, learning how to do police reports, and other things too, if you're not actively patrolling the road versus when you're in the field, we become combat support. So a lot of it was convoy security in that nature, and detainee operations.
I understand. You deployed quite a bit. Your first duty was in Germany, working with the German police. What was that duty like?
It was amazing. I was stationed in Gießen, Germany. It's about an hour north of Frankfurt, Germany. And being there, we did do a lot of joint operations with the Polizei. They were very stern, and being able to go on patrols with them, they did a lot of DUI checkpoints, things of that nature. To learn how their law worked was fascinating. And going there too, if we weren't working with the Polizei, we did a lot of patrolling on the housing installations. I believe Bootsbach and Friedberg, Germany were our areas. That was where Ray Barracks was, and I think it was home to the 3rd Armored Division, if I'm not mistaken. And little known fact, it was where Elvis Presley was stationed between 58 and 60.
From there, you deployed to Kosovo. What was your duties like there?
Kosovo, we did a lot of convoy security. A lot of times we would travel to Macedonia, whether it be high-ranking officials or celebrities that would come and do shows for the service members there. So we did a lot of convoy security, escorting them from Macedonia back towards Kosovo, Camp Bondstill. We did a lot of patrols around the area of Camp Bondstill, and it was very intense, different, being in a war-torn country. By the time I had gotten there, it was peacekeeping mission, but we did have to respond a lot to riots against normally it was the Albanians now retaliating against the Serbians once the Americans came in and kind of took control over that. But other than that, the kids were fascinated with the female soldiers. They couldn't believe it. They'd always ask us to remove our Kevlar to see the hair tied back. But it was very interesting to see, and very nerve-wracking as a 19-year-old.
Right. Not many people will ever get to Kosovo. What's that country like?
The people, amazing. The people were always amazing, very happy to see the U.S. Armed Forces there. always, as well, there's a certain portion that are employed through the U.S. Army on the installation. And so whether it be the Chow Hall or the MWR, you get to interact with the Albanian and Serbian people, and just a beautiful country and always accepting. I was never scared going there, aside when they had riots, but like I said, it was never towards U.S. soldiers, so very welcoming.
And then you deployed to Turkey, and you worked with the NATO police, and you had a real experience there. Could you talk about that?
Sure. And we deployed on a 1-month mission down to Turkey. My squad, along with our LT, we were there with other NATO military police officers from Britain and East Germany, and also Italian and Turkish armies. During that time, we did joint missions, port security, escorting military equipment coming off the ships to wherever their location was. During that time was we left right after September 11th had happened. We weren't sure if we were going to deploy there when we did. I distinctly remember we were sitting around a fire with the British military police, and they were singing Bye Bye American Pie, which was their favorite song, and we were just eating chow, and then the British Sergeant Major came out of his tent and said on his radio, he had his radio, and he said the Americans just started bombing Afghanistan. We were shocked just because, we're here in a country, we're pretty far from Afghanistan, but just to be away from home and not know what is going on at our base or with our family, it was a little nerve-wracking, but that was the biggest memory I had from Turkey.
And your next stop was Poland.
Yes.
And you had an amazing experience there. What was Poland like? What was your duty like there?
Poland, beautiful country. Again, just these European countries I got to deploy to, it was really a blessing. You just don't realize how much love and support there are for the U.S. Soldiers there. A lot of times you see the bad in the media, you don't see all the love that you get there, and so being there was amazing. It solidified my journey in the military and why I joined. We did do joint operations with the Polish military police. They were like family. We pretty much housed in their police station day in and day out. And again, too, we were providing security for military exercises that were taking place there in Poland. Very beautiful country. The kids were amazing. I actually had made pen pals with the little girl, and I wrote while I was in Germany, but I lost contact. And I remember that because they were fascinated, again, seeing female soldiers, and it's not common, but working with the Polish military police, it was very interesting learning their culture and their ways.
Now, these countries you've been to, you have to work through interpreters for the most part, right?
Yes, sir.
What is that like? How does it get across?
Luckily in Poland, and it's funny is because you hear a lot of times when you're going to other countries, but it's amazing how many people in these other countries speak English. Unfortunately in America, we're only taught English in school. Yes, you could take your Spanish or French, but the majority of us don't speak a second language. But there, almost every country I went to, we were lucky that we had, that they knew English. There were a couple of U.S. soldiers in my unit that also spoke fluent German, and so those were the ones that we always went out and about with. In Turkey, obviously the Brits spoke English, but then there were, if we interacted with the Turkish or the German, there was always someone who spoke English. In Kosovo, we did have interpreters that spoke, majority was Albanian or Serbian, but they would travel with us as well. We always had one assigned to us. And same goes for Afghanistan. We always had one interpreter on duty. I did detainee operations, so there was a little facility within the detainee facility where our interpreters, they just rotated schedules, 12-hour shifts, but there was always someone there so we could communicate with detainees.
Oh, great. Now, You went back to the States, to Fort Eustis, and at that point you got some news from the unit that you were in Germany. And what happened?
That was when, you're always preparing for war in the back of your mind. Not when I first joined, but after September 11th had kicked off. We had been put on alert several times in Germany before I ended up deciding, well, let me go to Virginia. Let me go back stateside. I've been overseas 2.5 years. I wanted to get an opportunity to deploy. At the time, I didn't know what type of unit I was coming to, that it was all garrison, unfortunately, but I felt like it was my time to go, and I still kept in contact with all my fellow soldiers over there, and we were one of, my unit in Germany was one of the first units, military police, to deploy into Afghanistan and Iraq. We did lose some, I take that back, it was Iraq. We did lose some soldiers there. One in particular, I think she was the first female military police officer. She was young, just out of basic training. That was Private Bosveld. While I was there too, one of my friends, later on, there's a book about it, and it covers PTSD, and it's called Shake the Devil Off. It's a little macabre, but one of the soldiers I served with, Specialist Zachary Bowen, he ended up going on to get chaptered out of the military, and it wasn't until about maybe when I got out of the military I received word that he had committed suicide. The story behind it is grotesque. It was during the Hurricane Katrina time frame, and long story short, there was domestic violence, just a very grotesque. I don't want to go into details about it, but highlighted the issue of PTSD and made me wonder, was there something we could have done? Did we miss something in Specialist Bowen that we didn't see, that he cracked and had to do what he resorted to? Just to keep it kind of PG-13, he dismembered his significant other and jumped off the Omni hotel in the French Quarter, and that's when they found the letter where he apologized for everything that he did, and he said something happened in Iraq, and that was all I know. So that story, that book, does cover a lot of the journey and interviews a lot of the soldiers that I served with in Germany with him.
People don't understand the bonds that we make in the military. Yes. And when you lose somebody, especially that way, how deep that goes down.
Yes.
What were your duties like in the States? You said garrison duties, so
yes.
What was that?
The majority of the time we worked the roads. We just patrolled Virginia. We exercised Virginia state law, so all the tickets or anything like that we wrote, we had to go to the magistrate's court for those at the end of the month. It was very much law enforcement driven. We still had our days where we went out to the field just to practice our, soldiering skills, so to say, but the majority was patrol duties. A lot of vehicle accidents, traffic reports, so that was the opposite side of
gate duty?
Policing. Yes, gate duty was a big one.
What is gate duty like? 'Cause especially in Virginia where it's so hot.
Yes, we did have little booths, but the majority of the time, especially during your busy hours right before PT at the end of the day, we had to stand posts. We normally had about 4 or 5 gates where we would just check for the military ID, and then every now and then randomly we would send vehicles over to our search bay, where we also coordinated with DoD security, and we would assist if there was anything found in the vehicles, and definitely interesting to do.
Well, then you ended up deploying to Afghanistan, and how did this occur?
Correct. So originally I was with the 221st Military Police Company, and that was strictly garrison with the Provost Marshal's office. They had just stood up a new combat support military police company. There was word that they would be going to Afghanistan, and I found that as my opportunity to go. I had already been in Virginia for about I want to say 3 years and no deployment, so that was my call. I asked to transfer over to the other unit, 202nd, and they needed females, and especially staff sergeants. I was the only female military police staff sergeant there, squad leader at the time, so I did volunteer to go and become a part of that company. And we received word we would be doing strictly detainee operations, so our 4 or 5 months of training leading up to deployment was all detainee operations and weapons qualification.
So when you say detainee, does that mean prison or?
Yes, sir. That's all the prisoners of war, anyone that had fought against U.S. armed forces, and we housed the detainees. We just safeguarded detainees, and typically we had either your CID or your military police investigators that were embedded in the company. They weren't part of our units that would do the interrogation. We just kept them safe, making sure we fed them, took them out to the rec yard, your basic operations of the facility.
What was Afghanistan like? What was the people like? I mean, was it hostile all the time? Or?
Not necessarily. Again, you have third country nationals that the military helps to employ on base. So a lot of times you interact with these people, and again, lovely people. It's not always what you see pictured out on the media. Very understanding, a lot of them speak English, and so just to be able to see the same faces, like when you would go to turn in your laundry or sign in for the gym, and just to say hello, and nice country people. The 1 or 2 times that I did get to go outside of the gate on a mission, the people were just lovely towards us.
You were inducted into the prestigious Sergeant Audie Murphy Club. Tell us about that.
Yes, so most of you, if you don't know, Sergeant Audie Murphy was in the military. He was a Medal of Honor recipient, and he also was an actor. He starred in some Western movies. It is a prestigious club, I guess you can say, in the military stateside, whereas Sergeant Morales, who's not a real character, is for overseas. So being inducted to this board was a big honor. Myself and my fellow squad leader, Kurtz, we were thick as thieves, and he was with me too. We went through it together, and it was very hard. We had all the the main post sergeant major, along with all the battalion sergeant majors that were also Audie Murphy inductees, and they would just drill you with military questions, go also Army regulations, and look at your weapons qualification to see if you were one of those soldiers that could emulate Sergeant Audie Murphy. Yes.
Oh, I remember those.
Yes.
What drove your decision to leave the Army?
After I returned back from Afghanistan, I want to say probably 5 to 6 months after, I started dealing with a lot of what at the time I didn't know was PTSD. I think I was struggling. My husband had just gotten out of the military. He went back to Illinois to set up shop because I knew I had about, at that time, a year and a half, 2 years before I would get out. At the time, I thought I was always going to be a lifer. First female sergeant major of the military police corps. That didn't happen. Like I said, I started coming on orders for drill sergeant school, for NCO school, and I felt overwhelmed, and I was very irritable with a lot of things. Everything set me off. I had trouble sleeping. I wasn't my normal self. I felt very miserable in what I was doing. I didn't see a purpose, and I lost sight of who I was. At the time, I think I looked at faults in other people or other newer soldiers to use that as an excuse for my reasoning to get out. And all along, it wasn't until, like I said, about 6 months after that, where I started experiencing PTSD, it took me about 3-4 months after that, so a total of 9 months of dealing with this before I finally decided I had enough, and then I did seek out treatment through the military.
Now, how did you and still do deal with this?
Understanding that, mental health or mental illness, it's never going to go away. It's about controlling those feelings and finding what's best for you. For me, medication and therapy, counseling. Some people just prefer counseling, but for me, I knew that I needed, the pharmacological and the counseling to that. And now I do go through the Rockford VA, and they have an amazing group. You hear all these horror stories about VA clinics or whatnot, but Rockford VA, amazing. And I've been with the same doctor there, and she's been with my journey. And just to know that there is help, you got to seek it. There's no shame in seeking help, and that was the biggest deterrent for me. And what my peers were going to think and how they were going to treat me. Were they going to see me as weak? And a lot of that pushed me never to seek help, and to the point where I contemplated taking my own life.
The people who've never served don't understand. I mean, they see some of us and they can't understand the actions that we perform, and how
Yes.
sometimes we're either quiet or seem to be rude, and it's
Yes.
because of what these men and women have gone through and seen and have lost. And I appreciate you talking about it, because I don't think the people in this country understand enough about what PTSD is doing. Okay, so you've left the Army and you went and became a security contractor
Yes,
in
sir.
Iraq.
Yes, sir. After I had gotten out of the military, I started pursuing my bachelor's in criminal justice. I decided that I was going to continue to pursue law enforcement. That's all I knew. And halfway through, as soon as I started school, probably about after one semester, my previous team leader reached out to me, and he said, "Hey, Gonzo was my nickname," and he said, "I'm with this security company over in Iraq. We need some females here. Are you interested?" And I said, "Yes, but I can't just leave my husband." At the time, we didn't have any children. He said, "You know what, no problem. I can get your husband on as well, but probably not until another 5 or 6 months, give or take. But we do need females." And I said, sure enough. So I dealt with one of their recruiters out of Las Vegas. We finally flew over there before they got us ready, provided us with some basic training, weapons qualification. And before you knew it, we were flown over into Baghdad, and then traveled by convoy down to where I was located, which was very south near the port, Camp Bucca, Iraq. And very interesting. We did perimeter security. We contracted third country nationals from Uganda. They were not soldiers. Some were soldiers, some were just basic civilians. And our job was to train the Ugandans to take over the perimeter security. Previously, it was the U.S. soldiers, and I think around the time when President Obama was pulling back soldiers out of there, we took over that duty, as well as the duty of vehicle inspection and personnel inspection for anything and anyone coming into the installation.
Okay, now you decided to make a different course.
Yes, after about 2 years, I was the supervisor at the main gate entrance, and with searching vehicles and personnel. And we used to have a lot of local nationals come to the front gate seeking help from the U.S. Because they knew it was a military installation. Unfortunately, the main mission was detainee ops. There was a large Army hospital on base, and it was to care for the detainees there. And we would have to turn away if they didn't have any beds. The local Iraqis, I want to say in 2 instances, I felt helpless, like I could have done more. And one of them was probably about 15 months old, and I think a lot of them, because they don't have the electricity, use the kerosene, the old school oil and lamps, and we saw a lot of burns. This 15-month-old was burned all over her chest, like it fell, probably about 2nd and 3rd degree burns, and it was very infected. And I remember calling over to the military hospital, and they couldn't take them, and understandable. And I couldn't do anything. We did have an emergency box there that had like IV solution and like gauze and bandages. I gave it all to the family and tried to clean what I could off of the wounds, and then I had to send them away. And to see them cry like that, and just, you feel like you disappointed them. And the other burn victim ended up passing away. They left our gate and went across the road with their daughter, and you could see them mourning when she passed away. And that was when I said, not again. I can't just sit and stand by and watch. Everybody deserves dignity in life and death. And I decided I'm going home. I'm going to become a nurse. And went back home. My husband stayed for 3 more years, and then I enrolled at Kishwaukee College into the nursing program. And here I am about 11 years later as a nurse.
So how do you like being a nurse?
I love
know
it.
You're a little different now, but how do you like being a nurse?
I love it. Sometimes I have the difficulty still, even I got out in 2007. I still have difficulty transitioning from the military when it comes to lingo, how you talk to people, the motivation. It can be a little disappointing because you're used to operating a certain way. So you got to remember, it's not black and white. There's always a little bit of gray, and you have to learn how to read people and interact with people so as to not offend them. That's hard, but in the back of my head, it feels just like if I was in the military as a supervisor. I have my soldiers to take care of and to train, and as a clinical operations coordinator, I'm in charge of their training, making sure they're competent, any type of patient complaints, and quality measures, and making sure we're meeting targets. So in a sense, that's just like the military. You're training your soldiers to go to war, whether or not you really go or not. So a lot of the same concepts are there.
Right, I understand. My last question I always ask my guests, especially the veterans, how do you feel about being a vet?
Excuse me. I'm honored to be a veteran, and I get emotional about it because I think of all the friends that I lost to PTSD and that were killed over in Afghanistan and Iraq, and to know that I served with such great human beings, and also to know the people that paved the way for us ahead of me, your generation, my father's generation. It does really make me proud that I have served, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Even going through everything and the PTSD, I'd do it all over again.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you
for being on my show.
It was an honor.
And please accept this pin and this coin.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to read notes and letters I get from the people who I support with care packages each month. This one is from Joshua Reed, a tech sergeant in the U.S. Air Force. Jim, first I want to thank you for all the support while I have been away. The packages have boosted morale of my unit in extreme austere environments. The guys have been extremely thankful, and I'd like to send you some pictures at the end of our deployment. At this time, we're unable to take photos due to the secret nature of our location, but we'll attempt to when we get back to our main base. Please send our thanks to everyone involved with your wonderful organization. Thank you again for all your support. Respectfully, Josh. I understand those of you who've never served or had deployed to a place that is different from home and is dangerous. How much a package filled with candy and goodies and letters from home mean? It can mean so much to troops overseas. It means the people back home support me, that I'm not forgotten. I want to thank you for viewing this show again. I hope that you help understand kind of what it's like to be in the military and what we went through and what we still go through in many cases. I hope to see you again next month here on PHTV4. Honor and respect.